Welcome to the Jock Market Power Hour for this week's PGA Championship. It's time, Joe. Another major. We're back at it again.
Love it, man. It's like we're in the heart of the season right now. It's like every month we get a new major to look forward to. I'm fired up.
For the next hour or so, we are going to be walking you through the final moments of Jock Market's IPO. We get new people joining us every single week, and I imagine with the major championship, Joe, there's going to be even more newbies. So this is Stock Market DFS. This is your opportunity to buy and sell shares of golfers. Right now, we're in the IPO phase, initial player offering. We're bidding on golfers, and at 9 o'clock Eastern, or a few minutes before, whoever has the highest bid on those shares is going to be allocated those shares, Joe. And it's a wild and crazy time this final hour.
Yeah, particularly the final 5 minutes, as we always see. Like you mentioned, the close can happen anywhere between like 8:57 and 9 o'clock. So make sure you get all those bids in on the players you like. We'll talk through some guys that we like, some guys that we don't, and give away some free money along the way.
That's right. If you want to win some free money along the way, the way to enter yourself into the draw is to drop your Jock Market username in the chat. While you're doing that, you might as well hit the like button. It's right there. Just go ahead, click it. No big deal. We won't stop you from doing that. And the other thing is more money to be given away. A $50 deposit bonus, major championship, major deposit bonus. Use the code POWER50 to get yourself that $50 deposit bonus on Jock Market. And Joe, if that wasn't good enough news, the boys over at Jock Market got a little infusion of cash this week. How about that?
You love to see it, don't you? $10 million they were able to raise in a funding. So we are going to see new improvements. I actually talked to them today. We have things that are on the way that are going to blow your mind, that are going to take this thing to the next level. They are working, I think they're in 35 of 50 states now in terms of fully able to play. So we're getting more of those come along as well. So to the moon, baby.
You know, it's always good to see something like this. You get money from VCs, and it's just a gamble, right? It's a gamble that these guys are doing the right thing. Something we've been talking about for a long time, where they've been making constant improvements. Now you get this infusion of cash, and you imagine many more great things to come. They have more than just the golf. We're biased. We like the golf, but more than just golf. Plenty of other sports, and it sounds like from the cryptic things I read in some of these articles, much more cool stuff on the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can't wait to see what they can roll out next to make this even better. But as it stands right now, a ton of fun, right? This next 45 minutes is like no other app or fantasy game or betting site that you will see. Players are moving up and down the board constantly. And, I think I tweeted out earlier, with as hectic and volatile as the markets are today, all over. This is a safe place to put your money, right? We can feel good about it. You can make your own decisions, and you, my friends, are in control tonight.
I woke up and checked the crypto markets, and I rubbed my eyes. I said, that can't be right. Let me check again. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, that is right. I think we're going to have better luck here in the Jock Market this evening. And Jeff has checked in, and he says he's getting more comfortable with the mechanics each week. That's awesome. It's good to hear. It is certainly something that, it took me a few weeks to kind of figure out. And it's just like, okay, it's just a different side of the brain. And while we're talking about some of these mechanics, here are the results from last week's AT&T Byron Nelson here, Joe, and KH Lee, who this time last week, KH Lee sold for $3.37 a share because he won. He closed out and he got the full $25 payout. And this is where I cue someone from the peanut gallery saying, well, Rick, if I bet him 100 to 1, I would have made a lot more than that. Which is true, but on KH Lee, you would have got paid, Joe, what, on any place above like 42nd that you would have made money on him. Anywhere from 42nd to first, you would have made money on KH Lee.
Hey, I've got a perfect example for you. If you noticed the leaderboard last week, your boy was up there. And why? Because I had 28 big-time shares of Sammy Burns that paid out absolutely nothing in the outright market, but paid me out like over almost $600. So that was incredible. Thank you, Sam Burns. He is now firmly a part of the brand after a couple of wins, after I win recently and doing well this week. he stockpiled me with a little extra cash to dump back into the market this week. So yeah, we saw Daniel Berger storm. We saw Patton Kizzire. We've seen a lot of, and I'm going to start to crunch a little bit more data to see where we're kind of seeing the biggest bump. But, like Jeff mentioned, I think each and every week I'm getting better. I feel like I'm understanding this more. I feel like I'm developing and honing in a little bit more on a strategy, and I hope you guys are as well.
That's awesome. Patrick checks in and he says, how often are you trading players in week? I made some bids last week and they just kind of sat there thinking of doing the IPO and just being done with it, which I think is an interesting strategy. And I think that's where a lot of the value is, Joe. And as we see the markets get more liquid, there is an opportunity to buy and sell more often during the event. I find it more natural to check after round 1, after round 2, and after round 3. I know some people are in there constantly throughout the rounds, watching birdies be made, watching bogeys be made. So I say, to each their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. To each your own. Whatever you're comfortable with. I end up oftentimes, Patrick, kind of riding it out a little bit. I know I had the opportunity. There were some really high bids on Burns last week. Look, I bought him for a reason. I'm a little bit of a gambler by nature. I'm going to ride it out to the end, and that's kind of what I chose to do. But I do like to add some players, particularly on Friday around the cut. I know that I got some really cheap shares of who was it, like Hank Lebioda last week, right when he was kind of hovering around the cut line, made a little run, and then I think finished like 12th. So these are the type of opportunities that are out there. Now, is everyone going to pan out like that? Of course not. But there are opportunities that do exist throughout the tournament. It's just a matter of being in the right place at the right time.
And finally, before we turn our attention to this week's major championship, Nick asks, are you more likely to bid on the same golfers you've bet on or different guys entirely? Are you a fan of the life hedge there, Joe?
That's an interesting question, Nick. I think that more likely, so my guys that I'm targeting typically are the same guys that I want to bet on, or I'm playing in DraftKings, or I'm trying to, because I feel good about their chances to win. Now, with Jock Market, it's interesting because value changes based on the price, right? So I can see, like, if I'm targeting someone like Spieth tonight, yeah, I think Spieth is going to do well. Yes, I have an outright ticket on him, but there's a price where he's no longer of the same value to me, particularly if I can go down a couple of dollars cheaper and find someone that I think has a pretty good chance of doing well also. So to answer your question, it kind of depends. I start out targeting those guys, and those are sort of who I have favorited on my list. But, you know as well as I do, Nick, the last 5 minutes, it's all about finding someone at a good price.
And what I think is most interesting is there are a lot of guys that I have a more positive sentiment on than the industry does, but the traditional bets might not give me enough options. If there's a guy who, I'm trying to think of who a good, I'll use Dean Burmeister, for example. I like Dean Burmeister. I think I'm very high on him this week, a South African coming over from the European Tour, but me being high on him means, like, I think he can finish inside the top 50. Like, I'm not trying to ask him to win the tournament or top 10 or top 20 or anything like that. And Jock Market is my opportunity to say, I'm a little bit more bullish on this guy. Let me get some shares. Or, I'm going to stay away from certain golfers. I really think that this is a way to just say, take your smaller edges of positive sentiment and move on. That's the way that I treat it.
Love it.
Love it. Let's turn our attention to the ocean course at Kiawah Island. And Joe, this is, we were chatting before we went hot there. I mean, I don't know what to expect, right? I mean, I think this course is going to be beautiful. I think it's going to be looking awesome on television. I think it's going to be challenging. I think the wind is going to play a significant factor, and you're going to see golfers need to lean on their complete game if they want to find success.
Yeah, same with you, man. I don't really know. Like, there's kind of a bit of an unknown here. Like, longest course in major championship history. It's stolen all the headlines this week. Maybe a little bit of a lazy narrative. And what I mean by that is they're going to set it up to play however they want it to play. So is it going to play 7,800 yards? Probably not, because the wind is going to determine that. So do you isolate, approach players at that point, and guys that, are in full control of their ball right now? So those are the type of the guys you look to isolate. Could short game be a huge factor this week? I think so. If you're coming into a lot of these greens with long irons, you're going to be able to have to get up and down. When I watched Rory watch back the event in 2012, he got up and down from everywhere. And I think he said it's the best he's ever had his short game in his career. So that's why we saw him win by 8. I think that's going to play a huge factor as well this week. A lot of different lanes and avenues to take in order to land a winner this week. We're just going to have to see how it shakes out.
All right, let's start spending some of that 10 million bucks. We're giving away Jock bucks here right now. I'm ready to start giving it away. And the first $20 is going to go to Robbie. Robbie, 15, congratulations. We'll get you set up with $20 in Jock bucks. If you also want to win Jock bucks, leave your Jock Market username in the chat. Ask any questions. Raise some concerns, say some comments. This is an open forum. This is supposed to be interactive, but I think it's time, Joe. I think it is time for me to give the big board a refresh here to see what the current state of the Jock market is. And before I do that, what are you expecting tonight? Are you expecting a fast start? Last week we saw a lot of high prices when I flipped this over for the first time, or do you think most people are going to wait towards the end?
We did. Last week we saw a ton of high prices. We saw, I believe we saw guys clear $12. We had a lot of guys over 10. I'm honestly expecting a little bit more of a balance in terms of, I don't know that anyone's necessarily going to clear $10 this week. I think that just the depth of the field, particularly at the top, is going to kind of spread some of those dollars around versus having a prohibitive favorite. It seems like you could take your pick of like 6 guys really could be the favorite this week, depending on, the avenue that you want to take. So I think we're going to see it a little bit more spread around at the top, and given the depth of the field, I think it's going to carry out through the rest of the lineups.
To the surprise of absolutely no one, Jordan Spieth is the most expensive golfer in the Jock market at the moment. He is $9.09. And if you're asking yourself, what in the world does that mean? It means that he needs to finish about 14th or better to pay for himself and to return you a profit. 14th would be $9 a share. 13th would be $9.50 a share. So obviously you can see my final payouts here on the right-hand side for that table. Joe, I would have bet $1 million. I would have bet all 10 million in that Jock market just got that Jordan Spieth, when I flipped that, was going to be the most expensive golfer.
I know. And you know what? I think Rory might give him a little bit of run, but we'll have to wait and see. Look, he's the most expensive for a reason. I bet him this week. I think that it's as weird as it is to say, he's been the most consistent player at the top of the board. And 6 months ago, if you'd have told me I would have said that, I would have said I need my head examined. But across the board, off the tee, approach, scrambling, putting, he's putting it all together right now. And what is even more, we know the narrative that he needs this to sort of compete the career Grand Slam. And some people may give him a little bit of a knock this week in terms of driving distance. They'll look at the total yardage. They'll say, I want bombers. Well, listen, Spieth performs very well on these long tracks. Whistling Straits was ridiculously long back a while ago. He finished second in that event. The PGA Championship at Bethpage, I think, may have been the longest in terms of yardage before we got to this event. He finished third, coming in with basically shit form. Out of nowhere, finished third there. He won at Chambers Bay, which was extremely long. So he plays long golf courses that are very tough very well. So I expect him to be very popular this week. He's the number one price guy for a reason, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I share all of those sentiments. I think that he has been by far the best player this year, and this should be a good set. He's creative. He's really creative. And I think a course like this, I think benefits the artist a little bit. Right behind Jordan Spieth, 3 names at $7. A couple of young guns, Victor Hovland, $7.04. Colin Morikawa, our reigning PGA champion, $7. And Rory McIlroy, that name, also at $7. I imagine we are going to catch a ton of steam on Hovland. We're going to catch a ton of steam on McIlroy. We'll see what Morikawa does. But Joe, I mean, we're going back to the scene of the crime here. 8-shot victory in 2012 for Rory, a Sunday 66, where you mentioned he called it the best short game round of his career, or week of his career, and now he's fresh off his win at Quail Hollow.
He's right there, and I just feel like his popularity this week in terms of coming back off of a victory, in terms of coming back to a place he won, may inflate his value a little bit beyond kind of what I'm willing to pay, honest with you. He hits it so high, and he's been a little bit loose with the driver. Even at Quail, we saw it a little bit loose with the driver. And I feel like those two things are a recipe that doesn't lead to a ton of success in Kiawah unless you have the best short game, week of your career. Can he do it again? Of course. It's Rory McIlroy. He's one of the best pure golfers that we see on the planet. I just kind of am looking, I think, in some other directions, but it's all going to depend on the price. I feel like he's going to come really close to Spieth and definitely finish in the top 3.
The king of Paspalum is Victor Hovland, both of his wins coming on that surface. We start going down a little bit here. Daniel Berger, Cam Smith in the mid-6s, Xander Schauffele, Tony Finau in the 5s. And if you like short game specialists, Patrick Reed is $5 even. So at $5, he would need to finish 34th or better. And then Jon Rahm is here as well. And I feel like Jon Rahm, everybody you ask says something different about Rahm. Hey, I'm cool with what he's been doing. 9 top 10s and 13 starts, something like that. He hasn't won enough. The putter's been a little bit loose. I don't know about what he's been doing since he switched to Kiawah. There seems to be a lot of different opinions about this guy.
Yeah, it feels like there's never, or at least recently, been this many unknowns about Rahm. He was always such a consistent and steady force, and you knew exactly what you were going to get from him almost every week, which was basically a top 10. I don't know that I feel that way right now. I feel like there's parts of his game that it's just not all clicking. Now, he's at the level of talent and the caliber of player that he is, that can happen at the drop of a hat, and he can flip the switch, certainly. But he would be the guy sort of in that top 6 that I think I would have the most concerns about this week.
Is Justin Thomas, who is currently at $4.55 in the Jock market, the most overlooked stud this week? I mean, he's our players champion. He just won one of our largest events. We want to talk about Rory. We want to talk about Spieth. We want to talk about DJ. We want to talk about Jon Rahm and Justin Thomas. I feel like I've spent very little oxygen on this week.
I think so as well. I think that's a great point. It just doesn't seem like there's nothing to talk about really with JT besides maybe the putting. And I think some of that is negated this week with the Paspalum, maybe a little bit of slower greens. There's not much undulation to him. It's kind of aim and fire. The big thing is getting there in 2, right? If you put it on the surface of the green this week and hit your greens and regulations, you are going to be in great shape. Obviously, ex-PGA champion. I think similar can be kind of said about the defending champion in this event, who in some aspects feels kind of like discount Justin Thomas, and that's Colin Morikawa. They're both phenomenal ball strikers, and that's what wins on the PGA Tour. That's what we see consistently. Morikawa is number 1. JT's number 2. They just strike the ball so damn well. You can never rule them out. If either of them have a decent level putting week with the field or gain a couple strokes, they're certainly going to be right there in contention.
Continuing down the list, I'm looking for big names. I see Bryson DeChambeau at $3.05. I can't imagine he's going to stay anywhere close to that number, Joe, but there is seemingly a lot of concern for Bryson this week. His game leading in has been sporadic. There were some little birdies out on the course the last couple of days, keeping a close eye on Bryson, and not necessarily positive in their remarks about how his form is in some of these practice rounds. How are you assessing his game and how he might be fitting for the Ocean course this week?
So it's 2 things, right? Obviously, the distance is always going to be an advantage at an extremely long golf course. It's huge for him. But what I think is a disadvantage is the unknown that comes with playing on the Ocean in terms of the wind, right? You can get 10-mile-an-hour gusts that change to a 25. You can get it switching from left to right. And I feel like this stuff bothers a guy like Bryson more than some. Some guys are just going to say this is part of it. But to someone who's so exact with every piece of the golf swing in terms of, I feel like when he takes a swing, he can kind of calculate, okay, I hit that 118 ball speed with 6,000 RPM. This is exactly how far it's going to go. That's not happening this week. And I feel like that could really screw with him. I also don't think that he's the most creative player in terms of getting himself out of bad situations. And I feel like this course really lends itself that into sort of short game specialist. But of course, he's so long and he's won sort of on difficult long courses if you go back to Winged Foot before. So same thing. So good that he can win. But for me, I'm probably going to be, I saw his little 3-minute interview and I think he used the word diabolical like 5 times. So it doesn't sound like he's exactly thrilled about this week either.
Go ahead and drop your Jock Market username in the chat. That'll get you entered into a draw for 20 Jock bucks, absolutely free. The thing about Bryson that I find interesting is the natural areas is what they're called. These kind of, they're not bunkers. They're just these sandy, hard pan, weird little areas if you miss the fairway. And think about a normal course. If you miss the fairway, the rough stops the ball. Right. That's what it does. It stops the ball. It only runs a couple of yards. Here it's going to run forever. It's not going to stop. If you're missing the fairway, you're hitting it as hard as Bryson does. It can get you into some really tricky situations. I'm concerned. So we'll have to see about Bryson, but man, I'm worried about him. Given this a refresh, we haven't seen much movement here, although we did see Xander Schauffele pop his name towards the top of the Jock Market, Joe. He's $7.53 at the moment. He's second to Jordan Spieth. He's a guy that we know just contended at the Masters. He just played well enough at the Wells Fargo Championship to earn himself a top 15 finish. How are we assessing Xander's chances this week?
See, I always think that people aren't going to play Xander, or he may not be popular, or people aren't going to bet him, and people always do, right? And he's always has this level that I just can't really forecast. Like I have here wrote in my notes, I have him as the 8th ranked player in the field. I wrote unsure about his popularity this week, top 5 in 4 of his last 8 events, including the Masters, which is kind of a ridiculous run. But where is he going to come in? If he's second on this board as we narrow down toward the end of IPO, no, I don't think that's a buy for me. It just all depends on, I just feel like his value is typically overinflated from the results.
All right, I'm going to try to keep a close eye on this board. We are seeing a little bit of movement here. So John Rahm is moving up. He's now $7. Justin Thomas, he's moving up. He's now $7. If you're placing bids right now, Joe, and we've talked about this before, but I know there's a lot of new people here. And as we get to about 20 minutes out from this IPO closing, you can go right now and place your max bid. And that's not going to move the price to your maximum bid. Jock Market is going to increase the current price by only 1 cent when necessary. So this is a strategy that you might want to employ, Joe, especially if this is one of your first few times in the market.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different strategies I think to employ when you're looking at guys. One, you can do exactly what you just said. Place your max bid, hold it out, wait. If he clears that, you don't get him. If he stays under it, you do get him, and you know that you're going to get him at a price that you want. 2, and a strategy that I like to use is buy like 1 share, so you get him in your holdings, and then you can monitor that price and spend it all down the stretch. Now, the risk factor there is if we get an early close like last week, you can kind of get stuck with not what you wanted. And you could have said, man, I would have totally paid $8.50 for that guy. He closed at $7.50, but I didn't get it in on time. I just missed it. So that's the risk in sort of employing that. And third is to just use the new favoriting tabs that they have, right? Pick your 4, 5, 6, 7 guys, favorite them all, monitor the prices. Don't place any bids right now. Wait and see them and monitor them as they continue to go up throughout the rest of the night, and then fire away when you see a good spot.
As we start to look down under the $5 mark, there are some names that I think are going to be pretty popular. Keegan Bradley, $4.90. Sam Burns, $4.68. Will Zalatoris, $4.10. Hideki still hanging tight at $4. I'm a buyer on Hideki, so I'm going to keep a close eye on that price. Okay. Oh yeah, big time. I'm going to keep an eye on that price over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. Tommy Fleetwood's here. So Joe, when you start looking at this sub $5 range, who are you buying 1 share of? Who are you adding to your leaderboard tab just so that you can make sure that you don't miss out on them?
There's a couple of guys. You mentioned Tommy Fleetwood. I do have a lot of interest in Tommy this week. He seems to look, man, when a course plays its absolute toughest, Tommy has a way of just like firing off a low round when nobody else can in crazy conditions. And I go back to US Opens. I go back to Shinnecock Hills when he almost set the US Open record and nobody was even breaking par that day. Yeah. It's with Tommy, and his strength and where his game has always lied is the irons. I've seen it kind of flip for him. So 7 of his last 8 events in 2020, he lost strokes on approach. 7 out of 8 for one of the better iron players on tour. 7 of the 8 events in 2021, he's gained. So he's figured something out with the irons. I think that the harder that this plays, the more that the wind kicks up, it kind of plays into a guy like Fleetwood's hands.
Interesting. And that kind of leads me to the next natural question about the European players, right? I mean, we were talking before we went hot that even like a 12-mile-an-hour wind at the Ocean Course, it feels harder than that. Everything is very exposed around here. I was telling you, we've been getting videos from the course, and it's like, oh, this is, I got a video from someone out there, and it said, this is a light breeze. This is a light breeze we've had all day, and the flag stick was doing one of these, giving itself a little bend. So I would be a little bit. I don't know if I should be kind of giving the Euros, who I think we just kind of throw a blanket statement on that they're better wind players. Should we be giving them kind of just a little bit of a boost based on these conditions?
I think it's fair. Definitely. I've given them a little bit of a boost. Guys like Fleetwood, guys like Fitzpatrick, guys like Hatton, guys like Wallace. These guys are more familiar with this type of a golf course. This isn't a spot that we see much of on the PGA Tour. Right on the ocean. You could argue that it's kind of link style. You have to really sort of play with these adjusting winds. And I think that they're just more familiar with it. Are they better suited in the wind? I don't know. They're playing the same clubs. They're playing the same balls as the other ones. I just think that they're more used to it, and that could be a factor. And there's some precedent there. You go back to 2012 and beyond Rory, you had Carl Peterson, you had Ian Poulter, you had Anthony Lynn or whatever his name was. Guys really that you wouldn't consider bombers, or you wouldn't consider guys that even then playing a 7,600-yard course would be in contention, but they found a way up there.
Let's give away some money, and let's give it to Jeff A, or actually maybe it's Jeffa 9311. Congratulations. We'll get you set up with your $20 in your Jock Market account. And if you also would like to win, go ahead and drop your Jock Market username in the chat right now. If you already have, do it again. Make it a little bit easier for me to earn yourself an opportunity to win 20 Jock Bucks. Let's continue to go back to the big board here, Joe, and I'm starting to go down into these penny stocks a little bit. Sub $3 range. Paul Casey right at 3. Familiar names: Scotty Scheffler, Joel Damon right there as well. And remember, this is a huge field, so there are going to be a lot of these guys. I think this is where the vast majority of the value might be coming from this evening.
Yeah, and we usually see that, right? It's a huge field this week. Actually, more guys, I believe it's the top 70 in ties make the cut this week. So an extra couple guys than normal PGA Tour event stops. So, you can kind of cross those PGA Tour pros and the ex-champions off down at the list. But there should be some spots to isolate some guys that can finish in the top 20, particularly down in that $2, $3 range.
I'm trying to look at some of these names here that might be interesting. Lee Westwood, $2.64. Bubba Watson, I'm a buyer, $2.50. Let's go a little bit further, see what's going on.
Bubba, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Max Homa, $2.23. Sergio Billy. What's happening, Joe? I mean, we should be I think these guys need a little more love.
No doubt, yeah. Max Homa's right there. Like you mentioned, Sergio. Billy Horschel's coming in playing pretty well. There's a lot of guys down here, and even if you look at, I was looking at randomly, I'm looking at Martin Keimer today, right? Like guys who play on the European Tour. And Keimer actually is like top 10 in approach over there on the European Tour. So he's gaining like almost a stroke around, which would pretty much lead the PGA Tour if you're getting a stroke around on approach. And he's mentioned this could be a good spot for him. You look at the places where he's won, right? PGA Championship, Whistling Straits, Pete Dye course. He's won the Players, Pete Dye course. He won Pinehurst #2 when it was a U.S. Open and played as hard as, any U.S. Open in history. He won that event. So I think that the conditions can kind of bring, you got to look at guys who are suited to play in, -2 to -8 type scores. And those are the type of guys you can find in this $2 range.
Back to the top of the big board. Jordan Spieth holds as the most expensive golfer. He's $9.11. Xander Schauffele now into the $8 mark. Colin Morikawa still at $7.50. And then Cam Smith, big movement here. Cam Smith now $7.51. Joe, he's a guy that has proven to us a lot recently that it doesn't matter what the field is. It doesn't matter what the course is. He can find himself on the first page of the leaderboard. And this doesn't even really include the victory that he shared with Mark Leishman at the Zurich.
Yeah, and you know what? I would probably see Cam Smith has kind of already cleared the target price that I had for him. To be honest, I didn't see him going that high on the board. I'm looking at Leishman down there at $5. Who, you mentioned Cam Smith. They won the Zurich together. Leishman played pretty well last week at the Byron Nelson. He also top 5'd at the Masters. He's had a good history at the Players and some other Pete Dye type tracks. So, yeah, I feel like this could be a good spot for these Australian players who we know love a little bit of wind.
Trying to see if there's been any other movement. Bryson is on the way up. He's now at $7. Patrick Reed on the way up. Here's a name, and you want to talk about question marks? Let's talk about question marks. Dustin Johnson, $5.80 at that price, $5.80. He would have to finish 29th or better. That is seemingly an easy task for the number one player in the world, but DJ's game's been a little weak lately.
There's no doubt, but I'm not concerned, man. I'm a buyer in DJ this week. They're going to drift him up on the odds board. If he's going to stay around this price, I would firmly be a buyer. I'm not worried about the withdrawal. I'm not worried about some of the struggles in the game. I think that if he plays well, he's as suited as anybody to be one of the favorites to win this week.
I certainly don't disagree with that. And I was mentioning earlier, we've had, some little birdies out the course watching some of these guys and giving their input. And the consensus is all looks good in DJ's world. Swing looks good. Knee looks good, solid, all that good stuff. The guys that we've heard some concerns about were Bryson. Heard he was kind of spraying it all over the place. Heard John Rahm was spraying it a little bit, but you never know what these guys are up to in practice rounds. I would not read too much into that, right? I'm not going to try to convince myself about, what's going on here with these Tuesday and Wednesday rounds.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, they could be working on something. But for a guy like DJ, it is nice and comforting to hear that at least he's swinging well and at least he looks pain-free, right? He's not out there hobbling around. And so you can kind of cross that concern off your board. It's really going to boil down to, does he putt well? And that's been where he's struggled recently. I think coming to a place, obviously the South Carolina, the hometown major narratives should feel comfortable here, right? Should be relatively used to, not the quickest of greens. I think that he really struggled with the green speeds at Augusta National in the April edition versus the November edition when they were much slower. So I think slowing the pace down a little bit can allow him to attack a little bit more on the greens, which is right in his element.
Trying to see what else we've got going on here, man. We have not talked about, but we like to talk about, and you and I like to potentially wager on, is Brooks Koepka. And what we saw at the Byron Nelson was disappointing. It was ugly. He's got the goatee rocking over there on the ocean course. I mean, he's swagging around. I don't know if the game is in shape, but he at least is feeling good about himself.
At 525, look, I'm buying, man. 50-1, I'm buying. I don't care. I'm a Brooks guy to begin with, but I just feel like that this place is in his wheelhouse, and it was only 3 months ago that he won. Now, is there question marks around the knee? Of course there is, and they are valid. But there's a reason that he's $5.25 right now. There's a reason that he's 50-1 in the markets, and that's because of that injury. So you have to be willing to take on that risk. I think that the first 9 holes that Brooks plays are going to be more important than the first 9 holes for anybody else. If he can get himself off to a good start, -2 on the front 9 or something like that, and just get the adrenaline sort of pumping and feel the magnitude of a major championship, and I'm Brooks Koepka, and I'm here, and I'm healthy enough to play, and I'm playing well, it's on, right? If he sort of struggles and treads water, then you start to see him limping a little bit more. It's natural when he feels beaten up by the course, the knee, the long walk. I think it's going to be a very important opening 6 to 9 holes for Brooks, and I hope he gets off to a good start.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give away $20 more in Jock Bucks. That right there is going to Angler 365. Congratulations, Michael. We'll get you all set up. I've got 2 more to give away. I'll give out one after IPO closes, after 9 o'clock or around 9 o'clock Eastern time. And then I'll give one out at the end of the show. So make sure that your Jock Market username is in the chat and you've hit the like button for this video. But Joe, we are probably 7-8 minutes away from this IPO phase closing, and these bids are gonna execute themselves into shares. So describe to the people what to expect over the course of the next 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, so it gets wild. Like, you're going to be looking at your screen and you're going to see prices drastically jump. You're going to see yourself constantly losing holdings. You're going to be getting notifications out the wazoo. But that's the way it is, right? You just got to stay on top of it. You got to have them quick, rapid little fingers going. You got to be able to think on your feet and understand that isolating value in terms of where you see a player can come and go very quickly. So make sure to get those bids in time, and it can close anytime within a 2-minute span. So don't get caught holding the bag.
That's right. And last week was an early close.
Yeah.
It was like it felt like right after 8:57, something like that. It was closed, and everyone was like, "Whoops, forgot to get my bids in." So don't be left on that side of it for this week. And I've just refreshed it, Joe. And I don't know. I think I'm very interested to see how this shakes out. Jordan Spieth hasn't moved. We don't have a single golfer over $10 yet. In fact, we only have one golfer over $9. So I think you're right. There's probably going to be a lot of guys just spread out, which in theory should be somewhat valuable. I don't know. I don't know what to expect out of the next couple of minutes here.
Yeah, it's just picking the right one, right? Like, the PGA is typically the hardest major, at least on this side of the pond, to kind of peg, because it seems like there's so many more guys in play. Like the Masters, it's a much smaller field. You can kind of whittle your playing pool down a little bit more. It's very much dependent on course history and stuff like that. The U.S. Open is typically so difficult that you can kind of cross off the whole bottom half of the board, and you know the attributes that you're going to have to have. You're going to have to hit it far. You're going to have to hit it straight. You're going to have to be one of the top players in the world. I feel like this event tends to bring more people in play than we typically see, and that's why we're seeing a lot of the spectrum of pricing sort of balanced out at the top.
I think that's fair. I'm just kind of looking through to see if there's anything of note. Have we talked about Patrick Reed yet? $6.19. He would have to finish approximately 26th or better. I'm growing on Reed. The more we get into this, the more we see the conditions, the more difficult we see this course potentially playing. We know Reed has no problem in those types of conditions and tough places, and his short game is second to none.
Absolutely. Like you said, short game, second to none. The ability to make putts, second to none. The ability to close tournaments is also right there for Reed. And we've seen him, he doesn't hit it very far, but we've seen him compete and do very well on big time ballparks. Just did it at Torrey. He's got something that you can't necessarily quantify. So if you're looking at your stat models, he's not going to pop in any particular particular category, but he's just good, right? And he just has the ability to grind out pars, and I think that that's going to be huge here. I think someone mentioned to him, I think I saw an interview with him, and he was like, the wind is tough, and they were like, what do you think about like when the wind kicks up like this? And he kind of had a sheepish smile, and he was like, I'm from Texas, you know what I mean? He's used to the wind. He's welcoming the conditions, and he's a guy that I think will embrace it and play well.
All right, so here's what we normally do around this time. We usually bid adieu to Joe. We let him go and grind on the jock market while I bring you down the home stretch like a horse race here, because we're probably about 4 or 5 minutes away from this thing closing. But before we let you go, Joe, I got to put you on the spot. Who will end up being the most expensive golfer in this week's jock market?
I think here's a little bit of a take. I think that Spieth is going to stay right there and not move. And I think that Rory's going to pass him and end up right around 975. I'm guessing is Rory. Spieth will finish second. And we're going to see a late run. We've got to see a late run on Dustin Johnson here. So I think that he's going to go hard and fast here at the end.
All right, Joe, good luck. We will see you in just a few minutes. Joe will let us know when this jock market closes, which is probably in the next 3 or 4 minutes. So make sure to get your bids in now, because those bids are going to turn into shares. And as of right now, Jordan Spieth does remain atop the jock market with Xander Schauffele at $8. Rory McIlroy is closing the gap. He's at $7.99. He's one of the bigger movers that we've seen since we've come on air. So at $7.99, he basically needs to come inside the top 18 to return you money. We've seen a steady rise from Justin Thomas at $7.75, while Colin Morikawa has hung around $7.50 for the majority of the show. Here's the name that we're keeping a close eye on. It's Dustin Johnson. It's the world's number one. All reports out of Kiawah sounds positive. Game looks sharp. No need to be concerned outside of his recent events. But Dustin Johnson, only $7.30. If you're a buyer at that price, you're essentially asking the number one player to finish inside the top 20 at the Ocean Course. Daniel Berger, Victor Hovland, Bryson DeChambeau, and John Rahm rounding out the golfers over $7. Rahm and DeChambeau both at an even $7. That is a bit surprising considering that John Rahm is usually the king of the jock market. We have seen him on countless times be the most expensive golfer of the evening. Sentiment not quite there for him at the moment. A little bit further down the board, we get into the next tier of golfers. Patrick Reed, Tony Finau, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Abraham Answer. The guy that I'm keeping the closest eye on is Hideki Matsuyama. Had a horrible around the green week last week, one of his worst ever, but that was the only thing that was wrong. That's unlikely to happen again. I think Hideki is a big-time contender at the Ocean Course this week, and I'm going to give this board probably one more refresh here because we are about to enter the window where the jock market can close at any time. There's that 90-second window, that 2-minute window starting around, let's call it 8:57, where the jock market can close, and you could be there wondering if you got your bids in. We're probably in that phase right now. We're very close to it. Jordan Spieth still atop the board at $9.20, but here's the movement from the studs. Dustin Johnson, now $8.55. We knew he could not hang that low for that long. John Rahm back up over Rory McIlroy at $8.05. Justin Thomas on the move. So now we've got 6 guys over the $8 mark with Victor Hovland, the fantasy sweetheart, hanging at $7.52. Very little movement over the course of the last hour. We know sentiment is high on this guy, but it has not rolled in here in the jock market, and we are most certainly in that window where this IPO phase can close at any moment. Bryson, big beefy Bryson, still at a flat $7. Tony Finau trying to break through $6.10. Sam Burns, one of the hottest players on the planet, $5.50. And we've got names that are popular in other fantasy formats like Charlie Hoffman. He's down at $5. Keegan Bradley, $4.90. Bubba Watson, only $4.25. If you're looking for good drivers of the golf ball, Bubba Watson is available to you, and we are in it now. This is going to close at any moment. This is not an early close, which is good if you're trying to get those bids in. Make sure that you fire away. I'm going to give this one last refresh and see where we're at. Jordan Spieth still atop the board, $9.20. Rory McIlroy trying to catch him. Are we done? We're done.
Closed.
All right. We're done. IPO has closed. I can see all the comments coming in the chat. All right.
There's some value out there this week. I'm serious. I'm very excited about I'm going to wait until sorry to cut you off. I'm just fired up, Rick, but I'm very excited to see the orders go over into the holdings and see if I actually got these guys at these prices because I'm excited about it.
All right. The IPO phase is closed. We're going to give this just a second to make sure that all of our stuff is refreshed and I have all the most accurate data and all that good stuff. But Joe, how many guys were you targeting there as we were coming down the home stretch?
So I ended up with all of them, I believe. I have 9 guys this week, which is a lot more than I usually have. So what usually happens is I usually get outbid on like 3 or 4 of them and end up with 5 or 7. I didn't get outbid on anybody. So I think that I got everything that I wanted. And I just hope that it's a good week for me because I dumped it all right into the jock market.
All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give away $20 right now. We're going to refresh the big board. We're going to hear Joe's holdings. So let me do that right now. So PJ Smith, Peter, congratulations. We'll get you set up with $20 to the jock market. And I've got one more to give away. We will give it away before the end of the show. We've got about 15 minutes left. So make sure that your jock market username is in the chat. Joe, actually, before we do that, let me give this a refresh because I want to make sure that I just want to see who the most expensive golfers were, and then we're going to take a look at your holdings for this week here. All right, so here we go. Most expensive golfer, Jordan Spieth, as you predicted, did hold $9.20. Rory McIlroy, $8.88. JT and DJ both at $8.55, and John Rahm at $8.37. Xander Schauffele, $8.22. So 6 golfers over $8. Any surprises here, Joe?
I'm surprised at it all. Like, look at those guys in the $8 range. Like, dude, These guys, I mean, Rahm, I don't think we've ever seen him below like 10, $11. I mean, you're just asking basically John Rahm and Dustin Johnson and Justin Thomas and Xander Schauffele to like top 20 this week in order to get your money back. Basically, they've got to like top 18. So all of those guys, I think that are great value, and you can't even argue with Spieth. Did he ended up? Did he make
920?
920. So it went up a couple of cents from the early.
920 is 13th or better. The most expensive golfer you're asking to finish 13th or better. Everybody else essentially top 20s. I agree. There's a lot of value to be had this week. So Joe, let's focus on your holdings, and then we'll bop back to the big board and we'll talk about who the better values of the week ended up being. But you said you've got nine guys. You got them all. Let's hear them.
All right. DJ 855. Hideki. I went with the Rick Run Good pick because you always run good. You don't run bad, so I had to.
That's true.
$6 on Hideki. Brooks kept $5.88.
He knew that was coming.
Brooks to basically like top 28 or something like that this week.
All right. Well, if Brooks is true, if Brooks is right, like he's already ruled out 70% of the field, so that should be no problem.
There's only 28 guys left if Brooks is right.
So if he finishes last in his mind, you've won money.
All right, moving down at $5.50, I did get some Tommy Fleetwood. $5, Matt Wallace and Charlie Hoffman. So those were kind of my intermediate guy. Charlie's striking it so well right now. And I don't think we talked about Matt Wallace either, who was top 20 in 4 of his last 6. I think that he should be set up to play really well this week. And then a couple of the penny stocks, quote unquote, that I got this week were, I did get Martin Keimer at $1.97. So that's kind of my just random flyer of the week. Joel Damon and Harold Varner. I think both are very good in tough conditions. You know, you remember Damon a couple of weeks ago when he got his win, and that was on a coastal course, and the wind was blowing so hard you could barely keep your hat on your head. And he played really well and won that event. And Harold Varner, you know, he plays long, you know, he's from this South Carolina area. I feel like he played really well a couple of weeks ago at the Heritage here. And I, you know, you going back to a long, difficult golf course like Bethpage, and he was in the final grouping with Brooks that week. He's won at the Australian Open, which is known for really crazy wins over there. So those are kind of the penny guys that I just see with, I think, top 25, top 30 upside this week.
I love that. I mean, it's everything looks good on a Wednesday night, but this is a murderer's row of a portfolio here. DJ, Hideki, Brooks, Fleetwood, Wallace, Hoffman, Keimer, Damon, Harold Varner III, rounding out the portfolio for Joe. Guys in the chat are also letting us know. You know, Joe says, I think I ended up with 13 guys. Wasn't outbid on anything. I like this one. I just lost it. I got 5 shares of Sam Burns, lost my 5 shares of Webb Simpson at the last second. And then I love this question. What do you think about, so it's a typo. It says Higa, which could be, Joe. I don't think Higgs is in this field. Harry Higgs is not in this field, or Higo. Oh, yes. Okay. So this could be Higgs or Higo. I was like, I don't know. I just love that this typo could be either guy.
Yeah. I don't really know what to think of Higo. Where did he close at?
I don't know. I'd have to go.
I was really interested in the guy, Sam Horsfield, this week, and his price just very early on cleared like $4. I'm not quite sure where he finished, but he's very popular. You know, he's just ball striking the hell out of the ball over there on the European Tour, and has for a while. He's gaining on average, when I looked over there at the European Tour stats, 1.3 strokes on approach per event. To kind of put that into perspective, I think Colin Morikawa in 2021 is the best on the PGA Tour, and it's like a fraction above a stroke. So this guy's almost 30% better versus the field over there. Now the competition's a little bit different, but his first trip here really at a big time event over the pond, I was kind of looking at him, and I think Higo is in a similar position where guys coming over who have just been in great form overseas.
Higo at 259 is where he
price.
Ended up closing. I think it is too. Let's look at the rest of this board here. I'm going to go back to the first page because, okay, so we talked about the big names. Morikawa, our defending champion, didn't really move off of that $7.51 all night. Bryson, $7.51, same thing. Reed at $6.66. I mean, a lot of these look like good prices.
Right? A lot of these look like good prices, and I kind of know that because when I look and like your plus minus on almost all of these guys that I have is already way up, and
Oh yeah.
usually I kind of get a good mix. So, yeah, I don't know if maybe there were some more shares out there available this week, or maybe just everything being so spread out in terms of the talent level in this field just kept everyone's price a little bit at bay. But it should be a real fun week for a lot of us, and we should have some good sweats, hopefully.
Paul Casey at 522, Bubba at 4.25. Just trying to see if there's anybody who really stands out here. Trying to see. Homa 405. That's not bad.
Yeah, Homa 405. You go down and like Carlos Ortiz is pretty low. He's been playing pretty well. Schwartzel has been playing really well at $3.55. So there's guys. Alex Noren has been playing really good golf as well. $3.30. Justin Rose, a guy who I think finished third here back in 2012, who led the Masters for 3 rounds, is $3.55. Like there are guys all over the board seemingly where it was kind of take your pick of the litter you want to go with this week.
I love it. Well, it's only just begun because your shares are now live. Joe, go buy, go sell. You can really do whatever you want. Now, I think that listen, I think the conditions could change so quickly out there that live trading, you're probably going to want to be paying attention. If we start to see, I've heard things from if you're under par, you're going to win this week, to 12 under is going to win it, from 2 guys who are standing out at the same course at the same time and both out there, right? And both opinions that I respect. So I think there's a wide range of outcomes that could potentially happen this week, Joe. And once we start to see these scores roll in, I think they're going to be volatile. And I think having your finger on the app scrolling through is going to be critically important.
Absolutely. I'm going to have this thing open for the next 4 days, trying to isolate some opportunities. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of different sentiment in terms of how this is going to play. But I think one thing to pay attention to that everyone is kind of unanimous on this week, and I heard your guy, Trevor Immelman, talk a lot about it, 14 through 18 is a brute, especially if it's back into the wind. The 2 par 3s in there, the long par 5, the closing 18th are very tough. So you may be able to use that in terms of finding a little spot in the jock market where a guy could get off to a good early start in his round, maybe make the turn at, a couple under par, but that tough stretch is coming up. And the same sort of game theory can be utilized in terms of the cut line, where you have a lot of guys finishing there. 1-2 over par over those final 5 holes may not end up being a bad score and could really kind of adjust that leaderboard sort of on the fly as things go on.
Yeah, and the other thing to note is you're absolutely right. That prevailing wind, which I believe is easterly on what is supposed to be the first 3 days, will put those closing holes into the teeth, I believe, and then it's supposed to flip on Sunday. So now you've got to look at these other holes, because you remember this course, which I love, is one of the few remaining courses that go straight out in one direction and straight back in the other. Like you're going to play 6 and 7 hole stretches directly into the wind and then directly downwind. I love everything about this course. I can't wait to see it on TV.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see how it plays. I think that it kind of opens up not the most difficult. The number 1 and number 3 are relatively pedestrian par 4s. Number 2 should be a give players plenty of opportunities on the par 5 there. So we could see some good scores out of the gate. But like we mentioned, down the stretch, this thing's going to beat you up.
All right, let me give away $20 more to the jock market. My winner is somewhere around here. Somewhere. We got too many people chatting here. Here it is. J-Dub Speed, J-Dub Sped. Justin, congratulations. We'll get you set up for $20 in the jock market. Joe, before we get out of here, any closing thoughts? We've got a major championship. It's going to be bright and early, 7 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to be able to watch golf. That's when all of this stuff gets started. What do you want to leave the people with this week?
Look, I'm just excited to see these guys play a tough test. I'm really just hoping, and it feels like it's been a while since we got Clash of the Titans, right? I want to see Rom versus DJ versus JT. I want to see a lot of these guys at the top, and I'm hoping that we get that. Should make for an exciting week of golf. Anytime you factor in weather comes into the equation, it kind of throws everything out the window, and it's like, just go out there and play. I'm looking forward to it. I expect a lot of good things out of the guys that I picked in my portfolio. You can, I wrote a little article. It's pinned on my Twitter page. I've got my betting card up there. So I'm ready to sit my butt down on the couch and enjoy some ocean course.
All right, I'll be making a dent in my couch as well. So that'll do it for us. But the Jock market is just getting started. If you have any questions or concerns or comments, feel free to tweet us all week long with your with your stuff, because we're happy to talk about it. Joe, thank you very much, buddy. On your way out, hit the like button. We are going to be here same time, same place next week. And I'm looking for the close button. Okay, we're leaving, Joe. Goodbye.
Peace.